But me, I just wanted better for myself, man. So I was actually making calls, taking mentorships, learning, executing on information. During that 5 to 9, after work is where the real work begins. Most people don't change until they hate their situation enough. You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Stress, adversity, trauma, like before you start to see the freedom, you go through all this other stages before that. People count you out, but just staying consistent, staying on that path and having that goal in mind is what helps you get there.
What if I told you that the discipline of an athlete, the precision of an engineer, and the freedom of an entrepreneur could all exist in one success story? What's going on, millionaires? It's your guy Kai Speaks back with another episode of the $1 Million Mind Podcast. Another conversation about money, finance, and mindset, man. These are the conversations I honestly live for, because like it just keeps me sharp, keeps me on my feet, make sure like sometimes it's a little bit of confirmation, right? If I'm doing the right things, for myself, my family, my business. I mean, sometimes it's also a mastermind, get some good ideas, and that's why I love having conversations with the entrepreneurs that we have on the show. And today's entrepreneur is a special one. We got Steman Waiters in the building, and his brother has had some huge success in the finance and credit space, and also huge impact, helping a lot of people make their dreams come true, start up small businesses, scale to big businesses and things like that. But without further ado, Stedman, tell our listeners a little bit more about you and how you got started, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. First and foremost, man, I appreciate you having me on, bro.
Yeah.
This is an amazing opportunity, man. But just to give you a little bit of background on me, my name is Steman Waiters. I'm CEO of Waiters Capital, a business funding company. We specialize in helping entrepreneurs get access to capital. So when you go start that business, or when you have that business and look at take it to the next level, my company is where you go to get that capital to grow and scale, right? It wasn't easy for me, man. It wasn't easy for me, like you touched on it. Went from playing football, trying to figure that out, navigate to that, to corporate America, and then where I am today, man. So glad you got me here, brother.
Yeah, man. And I want to start right there too with that transition, like, because this is a transition that it resonates with a lot of people, because a lot of us kind of like come from whether the arts or sports, athletics, and then we kind of like find ourselves into corporate America like our parents want, and like our family wants for us. And then it gets to a point, especially our generation, where we just realize it's not too much that corporate America has to offer for us besides income.
Yeah. Right.
And so then when you realize that, well, the income part, I could take care of myself, so now what is the benefit? And some of us do a good job. Like for me personally, you still got my job. I've had a lot of different jobs, but the reason why mine is not just because of the income. It's just like flexibility, networking, connections, growth, all the other things. So some of us do a good job of being able to find like, okay, it is still some benefit in this corporate job.
Yep.
But for others, we're just like, nah, I got to get out of here. Boom, start my own business.
Yep.
And then now that we got that transition from corporate to entrepreneur, things might have changed a little bit. So this is a story that I feel like it can resonate with a lot of people. So for you, let's kind of talk about the mindset piece of these different, like in what ways did your mindset change at each point of these like transitions or shifts that you had to make from the athlete into corporate America, and then when you made the transition from the engineer to starting your own business as an entrepreneur, what did that transition look like? Was it like an overnight transition? Like one day you had a job, the next day you didn't. Like what was that transition like? So like dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'll start all the way from the beginning, man. Like I said, I'm born in Miami. Kind of was really raised in Atlanta, Gwinnett County, played football and all that good stuff. All I ever cared about during my life was just football. That's all I ever cared about. That's all I was really passionate about. Everything I did just kind of alleviated back to football. Like I got good grades. I stayed out of trouble because of football. You know what I'm saying? So football embedded a lot of structure in me, but it was just because of football itself, right? During that time, my mindset was very narrow. It was just on football, trying to get to the league at any means possible, right? Was pretty decent, went on to play at Georgia Southern University. And my coach told me in high school something that stuck out with me. He said, look, this would be the best time you're able to play football. And I'm like, I'm about to go to college, girls, parties, all this type of stuff. And I didn't really understand what he was saying, but he was like, once you leave high school, it becomes a business. It's no longer just passionate, fun, free game. You know what I'm saying? Just a game. You know what I mean? And as soon as I got to college, I saw that take place, right? Football completely turned into a business, but it was a good business at first as far as personal development, structuring you, waking up, early morning weights, different things like that. When I first got to Georgia Southern, one thing that a player actually told me was, make sure you take advantage of this opportunity and study something that's going to help you whether you make it to the league or not.
Right.
And I feel like not many people get that realism, that real talk when they're going to college, especially these different college campuses when you're playing football, right? And he told me straight up, like, hey, look, I've been here for 5 years. I had the time of my life, but I'm going to the military. That's something he could have did without even playing football, honestly. But it's because he didn't study the right thing. So he feel like he enjoyed his time there, but he also wasted his opportunity because he didn't take academics serious. Usually in college football, they push these smaller majors on you to have that high graduation rate, to sit into the next recruit's living room with their parents and say, hey, we're graduating 90, 80% of our athletes. This is like AB honor roll. This is our average GPA.
And also you could put more focus in football because you're not really challenging yourself,
exactly,
to say the least.
But it's a double-edged sword because you put in your time in the football, but you're not really developing yourself as a whole person, as a full man. You get what I'm saying? You're killing it in the athletic realm, but how are you academically? If football doesn't work out, how do you prepare yourself for real life? Which most people have to prepare for after football when it doesn't work out. It's just a numbers game, right? So I took that very seriously, and I decided to study electrical engineering. It was the toughest thing I ever did.
Yeah, sound like it.
It was the toughest thing I ever did, man. Even one semester, I almost failed out. I had like a 1.7 because it was just hard. I'm not going to blame it on the coaching staff or the school. I just didn't get the job done. It was just tough. I should have put more time into my academics, but I was, first time having real freedom, school, different things like that. I was putting into other things. So got back on my feet, got back right. Ended up graduating with an electrical engineering degree after playing football. Still was chasing football. What a lot of people don't understand with football, it's not always the best man win. It's very political, right? And then it's a money thing at the end of the day as well. Once you leave college and you try to chase and become a professional, it's money being spent 24/7 on training, on meal prep, on travel expenses, on being able to go to certain camps, all these different things that you have to invest into to even continue playing football. So was able to play arena football for a little bit, did my thing there. While I was chasing that, I was actually working as an engineer. That was the crazy part. So navigating into the engineer, at this point, my mindset was very narrow-sided. All I cared about is football. I even looked at engineering like as a platform to be able to fund my football dreams. Because like I said, I was being an engineer, and that night I was driving to go play to practice, you know what I'm saying, to playing arena football, different things like that. And slowly but surely, I start to see life kind of catch up with you, right? A lot of people don't understand that with football, it's not always like you push football pushes you out of football. Just financially.
Financially and physically, I'm thinking too. Like, the older you get, you keep taking them hits. Like, eventually your body, like, you know what? I had enough.
Exactly. And it's a very political thing, right? When you get to that next level, it's about who your agent, who you know, your tape, your film. It gets very, very competitive at that point, right? And that's why it's only so many people in the NFL, because there's only so many slots, you know what I mean? So it kind of pushes you out naturally over time unless you're really in tune with it, or finances pushes you out, because it takes a lot to be an athlete. Eating right, you see how expensive it is just to buy eggs now.
Just to eat healthy.
Just to eat healthy, right? It's way more expensive to eat healthy. On top of that, training, staying on that training, and then, you know what I'm saying, a lot of football players are still working 9 to 5. So it's very, very hard to maintain that for a long amount of time and not getting the opportunity you're looking for. So sometimes financially it pushes you out as well. With me, like I said, I was able to play a little bit of pro football, and then kind of just navigated towards just focusing on engineering. And as I became an engineer and got into the role, my mind opened up to really see that that's not something I really want to do, right? But one thing I do want to tell people out there is I hear all the time people say that, oh, I'm not meant to work a job. And I don't really like that saying, because it just doesn't make sense. What do you mean you're not meant to work a job?
When you start a business, you start working in the business.
And that's what I'm saying. The best way to become the best opportunity you have to become the best entrepreneur you want to be is to start by working for somebody. It start by working, right? Because you develop so many skills. Like when I look back as an engineer, it was a lot of structure in that embedded into me when running my own company. I used to hate going to weekly meetings, but now I do that with my team, and I see why is that important, because you're keeping the goal top of mind. You're building culture. You're building your fellowship and different things like that. That at the time working a 9 to 5 I didn't realize. So a lot of skills that you have at your job actually help you to become a better entrepreneur. And I think a lot of people overlook that when it comes to the corporate America and transition to entrepreneurship. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 1000%. You said it perfectly. That was like poetry. I'm like, yo, he hitting all the points, man. And one thing I want to touch on that you said was a couple things. We're gonna get into the politics and talk about like how the politics have shaped you later. But one thing you said was like just the 9 to 5 and how eventually that becomes like, as other guys in football are trying to chase this dream, they working 9 to 5s. And the 9 to 5 is like a double-edged sword as well, because it's both. It gives you the skills you need to become an entrepreneur. It provides you the stability and the income that you need to sustain your livelihood and stuff like that. But then also it can put you in this position of comfort and a position of like stagnation at the same time, where the 9 to 5 becomes only the 9 to 5, and you forget about the 6 to 10 that you got to put into yourself, right? And you talked about like how difficult it gets, when you have a 9 to 5 to still train and maintain eating healthy. That's because sometimes that 9 to 5 ain't a 9 to 5. It's a 7 to 7, or it could be a 7 to 6 or whatever like that. And then you realize, oh damn, it's too late I don't feel like cooking. Let me go eat out. Oh damn, I can't make it to the gym because I hate going to the gym after 6. Everybody in there is too packed, right? And so like now you start creating more and more excuses on why you can't train, why you can't eat healthy. And eventually that 9 to 5, you be like, I'm just good with working. I'm just good with working. So like a lot of us fall into that trap, and it's so hard. And I brought that up because as our listeners are like hearing this and they're like, damn, that's me. Like my 9 to 5, after I get off work, I just want to decompress. I just want to watch Netflix. I just want to spend time with my family. I just want to chill. What did you do differently? Like, how are you still able to keep that drive? I'm sure you was after work, you working on your business. Before work, you working on your business. Like, where did you still find time, and how did you prepare yourself to still put in that work for yourself?
100%. So it's a couple things I want to touch on with that. So one thing that hits home, just agreeing with you, and my mentor told me this, that's why I want to touch on it. A 9 to 5 is just a bribe to forget your dreams. So football was always my goal. It's always what I wanted to do. But then you get hit with real life, and people don't kind of understand that when you got bills to pay, you got stuff to do. And if football's not paying you and you keep putting your time and money into something, it starts not to make sense. And then it starts to affect the people around you, because you become more dependent on them because you're not making money. Now you have to ask mom and dad and pops and different things like that. So when it came down to it, man, corporate America, being embedded in that and making money kind of made me forget about football. Not forget about, but it made football not a priority, right? But one thing I realized in corporate America, and what I did after my 9 to 5 was putting in work on my 5 to 9, right? Actively seeking information. One thing I heard from Alex Hormozi, I follow him a lot, is most people don't change until they hate their situation enough. And I feel like that's where the stagnation comes in. Most people are cool with just working a job. They feel comfortable. They're like, hey, look, I'm making a decent amount of money. I can go out on the weekends. I'm cool. And sometimes when you're content, that can be your demise. That can really, hurt you in the long run. But I wasn't happy with my situation. I feel like I was underpaid, overvalued, and overworked. You know what I mean? So because I did not like my situation at the time, I was striving, actively seeking, how the heck can I change my situation? And I feel like some people don't do that. They say they want it, but they don't really hate their situation. They're at that point, you get comfortable. A 9 to 5 gets comfortable because it's the same routine, like you said. You wake up, go to work. Most people at a corporate America job, if you working 8 hours, realistically, you're probably working 4 hours. Just be honest, right? You get in the routine of going home, eating, sleeping, you're tired, doing the same thing over and over again. You become very comfortable and stagnant in that. But me, I just wanted better for myself, man. So during that time frame, man, I was actually making calls, taking mentorships, learning, executing on information, networking with the right individuals to get me sent business. So during that 5 to 9, after work is where the real work begins. But it's a lot of cons that come with that as well. A lot of my relationships with, my girlfriend, my family, different things like that. It was times that I wasn't there. Not important times, but I just didn't spend as much time with my family and friends because of that, because I was focused on building myself up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And as you focusing on, because you brought up like family and friends and stuff like that, what was your family, as you were now identifying like, hey, I'm not happy in this situation, trying to get out, as you were trying to make that transition, what support or lack of thereof were you getting or were you not getting from like your family as you was making that transition?
Yeah, so I feel like my family didn't understand me. I feel like when you're like a first generation entrepreneur and nobody in your family ever had that that mind to do something outside of going to school, getting a job, you're always going to be the black sheep. You're always going to be misunderstood. Nobody really understands you until the results prove otherwise. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things where it was like, as crazy as this sound, the engineer title pleased them more than just being an entrepreneur and making way more money. You know what I'm saying? So them telling me like, you're meant to be an engineer. You don't went to school for 4 to 5 years. You got a degree. You're an engineer. You're an engineer. You put all the work in. This is you. They were kind of like, oh, the little business, and then giving me like, what else? What if it doesn't work out? Or yeah, you're making money now, but this is gonna last forever. You got guaranteed money at a 9 to 5. You just got to show up to chase something that may or may not work out. So I don't think they were the most supportive when it comes to like mentally boosting me up, saying stick at it. You know what I'm saying? But they weren't just saying you need to just quit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the same thing I learned with friends as well. Some of the friends I had, I learned early on in entrepreneurship, once I started having results, some friends, they just want to be there for your benefits. They want you to go through the hardship and then benefit off of your results, if that makes sense, right? Like when we're talking about business, when I'm talking about business, when I first got into credit, when I first found out that you can leverage credit to get into business, instead of me working a 9 to 5 and taking 4 years to save up $50,000, I can realistically have the right credit, structure my credit the right way, get $50,000 and invest in the business now and save time and have that experience in the industry, right? And I'm spreading this information to my friends and nobody's picking it up. Nobody's picking it up, right? We playing the game, talking about college, females, and drinking, but when I talk about business, it's like, oh yeah, that's cool. Nobody's like dismissing it fully, but it's like, yeah, that's cool. Just let me know how it goes. You know what I'm saying? It's like very short and abrupt and kind of like back to, you know what I'm saying, stuff that ain't making us no money.
Yeah. Like, why is that though? Because I really like connect with that because it's the same. Like, you know, some of my frat brothers and stuff like that, you know, we'll always talk about it, but then when I start taking it there, yeah, that's cool. So why is it? Like, what is it about business that is cool for people to hear, but not cool enough for them to actually implement?
I feel like it doesn't seem realistic and it's not exposed to a lot of people that look like us or just in general. If you look at society in general, we're trained from a young age to just follow directions, take orders, and then, you know what I'm saying, get a job to where we do the same exact thing. And then when you go from, now I want to create my own and call my own shots, it's like it's foreign language. Just look at it from elementary. We're put into a system, right? And then after high school, when we're 18, we have a little bit more knowledge on what we want to do with our life. Everybody tells us, what's the next thing everybody tells us to do?
Go to school.
Go to college, go to more school, right? And then you go to that school and you're just put into, like I said, training. You're just training to basically be the best employee. Like if you look at school as a whole and you take away degrees, all school is just training. Can you follow directions? Can you stay consistent? You know what I'm saying? Can you develop, you know what I'm saying, skills that help you to become a better employee? And then once we graduate, what's the first thing we're looking for?
A job.
Right? So we just fall into a system. Entrepreneurship is not really talked about at a level and made seem achievable. One, because of the finance aspect. Every time you look at entrepreneurship, it's always in a category of risky. But people don't understand life is risky, right? You working your job, that's risky because at any time that employer can technically fire you. You know what I'm saying? And what you're going to do after that. You know what I'm saying? What do you have after the fall on? So that's one thing that I saw with entrepreneurship, just being able to bet on myself. And even like putting it back to football, just both of those industries being very political. Football is a very political sport. And like I said, early on, my coach told me in high school, when you get to college and the pros, it's all business. It's no more fun and games. And I realized that. And obviously, you know, in corporate America, it's all business as well. Let me give you 2 examples. the best man in football doesn't always win. It's about who knows who and what system you're in and what kind of clout you have, right? And people that are real deal athletes can agree with me, right? People that haven't been in sports, they may think, oh, it's always the best man. But it's a lot of people that are dogs that are gifted that are not in the NFL. It's not because they don't have the talent. It's because of politics, right? And the same thing in the work environment. Give you an example. You can be the best, candidate for a role, right? For going to a supervisor. But somebody else may get it because they have a relationship with the manager, with the boss. They have some type of relationship. So both of those were very political, and I felt like it stunted my growth because my growth was sometimes in other people's hands or me making the right connections. Versus entrepreneurship, it's something that you can take from the ground up, and your work and your effort and your grit and your grind can potentially take you anywhere you go, and the sky's the limit. You know what I mean?
That, and I mean, yes, and right, because sometimes it's even not even about who you know. Like sometimes it's just about where you went. Yeah. Like they could get the job over you just because of where they went to school or what previous job they have, and then like what assumptions come with that. People will see that on the resume. Oh, they went here or they did this already. Oh yeah, they got to be more qualified than this person.
Yeah.
And so that's a tricky thing. As we're on the topic of like politics, like talk about how both the politics in football and the politics in corporate America for you kind of helped you prepare for entrepreneurship differently than other people may have.
Yeah. Football, 100% facing adversity at an early age. You got to understand that the sport and the environment of football. You kind of throw emotions out the window a lot of times, you know what I'm saying, unfortunately. And you're working to one common goal, working with a team. But if you look at it, if you're on the bench, it's like you're trying to compete with somebody. You know what I'm saying? You're praying they don't get hurt, but you want your opportunity at the same time. And then especially if you're not a starter, it's like you're going to practice every day, putting in the work, being consistent for maybe opportunity. And I look at that as like similar to entrepreneurship. When you first get started in entrepreneurship, things don't always go your way. People count you out. People don't expect you to amount to much. But just staying consistent, staying on that path, and having that goal in mind is what helps you get there. Same thing when it came to, I would say, corporate America. It taught me how to shut my mouth at times. Everybody doesn't need to know your deck of cards. Everybody doesn't need to know your strategy. And it taught me to understand when to talk and when not to talk. Right? But in corporate America, you got to be, depending on the industry, your environment, you got to know how to pivot and operate in certain environments. And I feel like that's one thing that I got from corporate America that I didn't get from football. In football, you can completely be yourself. You can curse somebody out like a dog because you with the boys, you with the guys, you playing a sport, right? But in corporate America, you got to carry yourself with a certain demeanor and act accordingly and be able to move in different environments. You know what I mean? To really get to where you want to go. So I feel like both of those helped me to where I'm now an entrepreneur. I can take those skills that I learned, you know what I'm saying, and be able to really apply into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, no, that's real stuff. And like with you being an engineer, this little sidebar, because going back to like what your parents saying, like, with the title of being an engineer, like I'm just thinking of so many ways that like you're still an engineer, like you're still being an engineer as an entrepreneur, because like it's just a different form. Like you're engineering so many different things right now, from systems to processes to, call it like really systems and processes all together, but then even just the overarching opportunity. Like you're engineering your life the way you want. You're engineering your business the way you want it ran. So like you still an engineer, man. Like that's dope to say. But how else does your engineering background really like influence now your approach to like business funding and operations of like operating a business and stuff like that?
I would say strategy and thinking things out and running off of logic and not emotions. I feel like sometimes as aspiring entrepreneurs, and the internet doesn't do it any justice, you kind of get caught up in emotions and you make emotional decisions when you're probably not ready, instead of thinking from logic. Like going back to when I was working, I didn't just quit my job and just say, I got a dream to be a entrepreneur, right? I invest into the right mentors, right? The right mentors, because the right mentors can make or break you. After investing into that, I executed at a high level and developed a proof of concept of what I was doing, and before I actually even left my job. Like I didn't leave my job until a year and a half later when I felt comfortable, right? So I felt like being able, like I said, to just orchestrate and being able to navigate through and think from a mindset of, does this make sense at this point, and really bringing that to the work environment was really what got me to the next level. And just I'm a nerd, man. Like processes, systems, stuff like that. All of that technical stuff that I got from engineering, I brought to business. You know what I'm saying? Being very detail oriented, being very structured, having systems in place, understanding my client acquisition. How is my client journey? When somebody opts in on our page, how is that journey before they talk to one of my reps? When my reps talk to them, how's that, you know what I'm saying? How's that situation? How's that conversation, right? And then once we're able to submit them to our lenders, how's that, you know what I'm saying, transition? Once we get our offers back, how are we closing these things? So understanding the whole spectrum, looking from a bird's eye view instead of from a personable standpoint. You got to be very analytic when it comes to business.
Very, very, very much so. And so as you said electrical engineer you were, right?
Yep.
And that's what you went to school for. That's also what you got a job in out of college?
Yep.
Awesome. Hey, congrats on that. Being part of that percentage of people who do what they actually got a degree in, right? So what were you like actually doing as an electrical engineer?
So I was working for a utility company. First thing I'm going to say, somebody may be in college and feel like this as well. Most of the stuff you use in college doesn't apply to the workforce. As crazy as it sounds, as hard as school was for me, I would say probably 85% of the stuff I learned in college did not apply to the workforce at all, right? So I worked for a utility company, and basically I was over Dunwoody, basically Atlanta, here in Atlanta, right? I was over Atlanta. I'm on the commercial side. So anytime brand new businesses were being built, I was in charge of basically developing the electrical grid to be able to get them power. So the transformers you see outside, different things like that, or even this infrastructure, this neighborhood, before it's actually built, we would come in as electrical engineer and build out the underground development of getting, power from A to B. You know what I mean?
So that sounds pretty damn sophisticated right there.
Nah, it just sounds like it, but it ain't that much, man.
Right. He's like, I went to school for it. But it's back to your point though about like how school doesn't necessarily prepare you for the real world. That's real stuff, and because like in school, like it's just a whole bunch of theory. Like the workbooks, the curriculum is all people who like are like what they say, like people who like can't play the game usually end up
teaching.
Right. And so like for coaches, like the ones who didn't make it to the NBA or the ones who didn't make it to the NFL, they usually end up being coaches, right? And so the ones who didn't end up being in these positions, especially when you go to college, like I remember like because I went to school for business, and I remember like the biggest joke is like the business department full of a lot of non-entrepreneurs, like, and that's real. It's like they're just professors who got degrees in business and marketing and all this stuff, but like when it actually comes down to practicing it, I remember at my school I remember it was only one person, and he was so smooth you could tell he actually had a business that he was running or had run outside of what he was teaching, because like just the way he talked and just delivered it, half the time he didn't even tell us to look at the workbook, the textbook. It was all it was stories like, hey, this is something that happened, this is what we did, this is how we fixed it. He rarely told us to look at the textbook. And so when we talk about textbooks and stuff like that and learning, sometimes you just got to get out there, which goes to your point earlier on like why it is important to get that job, because sometimes you can even go to school for business and entrepreneurship, and it's all theory. It's all like, well, this you could possibly do this and you can try to implement that, but until you actually get out there and study under somebody, or you pay for a mentor and take their advice and stuff like that, you're not really going to know the real ways to succeed in business.
100%. That's one thing I always tell people, like experience over theory. 100%. Theory sounds good and what if sounds good, but it's different when you get hit in the face with it. You know what I'm saying? My coach used to always say, yeah, we can practice, we can watch film all the time, but what you gonna do when Mike Tyson hit you in the face and you gotta react? You ain't got time to think. You just gotta react, right? And that's where the experience comes in, and really just building yourself up as an entrepreneur. Another thing I tell people is just fail fast, right? The quicker you fail, I know it's scary, but you get over that hump, you learn, you get feedback, you adjust, and then you're able to now do better. You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing that my mentor instilled in me that I learned. Like, I feel like a lot of startup entrepreneurs, they're in their head too much, man. They just thinking the what if, so I need to be perfect, instead of going out there and actually doing it, providing the value, and then letting that value of that experience pivot and show them what they should or shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean?
1,000%. 1,000. And plus, your trainer not Mike Tyson. So like you can train with your trainer all you want, but he not going to be able to reenact a Mike Tyson punch.
Exactly.
You know, in a non-sparring situation. So, you know what, you just got to, like you say, you just got to get out there and just fight Mike Tyson.
Exactly.
So you said you went a year and a half before you left your job to pursue entrepreneurship full time, right? One thing that you shared that was so interesting, like, and is so real, and can be a reality for a lot of people, is that first 60 days in business. Well, that first 60 days after you left, or the first 60 days in business? Give me clarity on there.
In business. So actually investing into a mentor, 25,000. I don't have no problem telling people that, right? Investing 25,000 I didn't have. I had the leverage credit to be able to do that, right? And then the first 60 days, not really seeing results. In business, but still working a 9 to 5.
And I'm glad you, because I'm over here thinking like, okay, you left your job and then first 60 days, it was like nothing coming in. So I'm like trying to figure out like, what did that look like? But now given that context, that's even more the reason why, personally, I think people should maintain their jobs while building a business instead of just kind of like leaving and just trying to figure out, because that's the easiest way to find yourself back at any old job, because it takes time to get the jobs that we're really seeking when it comes to like the type of growth we're looking for, the type of skill development we're looking for. Like, it takes some time to get those jobs. You just can't, it's not just something you can say, oh, I need to go back to work, and you just get another job. Unless you're going back to the place you left and you left on good terms. But like, so let's talk about that though. You still at this job, so you still got some income coming in. So it's not necessarily a dire situation, but I can only imagine after investing 25,000 and not seeing any return on that investment for the first 60 days, that could have wore on you a little bit. Where were your thoughts going? What did you have to maybe change to get out of that 60-day rut?
I would say implementation. At this point, I had invested into a credit mentorship prior to, right? And it kind of taught me about business in general, you know what I'm saying? Understanding credit, leveraging credit, and that's how I was able to secure a little bit of funding for me. But then I invested into a coach in the niche I wanted to be in to give me like more direct, you know what I'm saying, help with something.
So and outside of that 25, you invested even more. Yeah,
like before I invested at 25, I had already invested like 3,000 to get into business, right? To learn about business, learn about credit, structuring your LLC, all that good stuff as well. And I always tell people when it comes to mentorship and guidance, if you know what industry you want to be in, you want to learn from somebody that's actually in that industry. You don't want to learn from a master of all trades. You want to learn from somebody that's a master in one trade so that you can get direct access and data points in that industry. So I invested $25K, and I feel like it was the implementation on my part, just like getting into the 9 to 5 cycle, feeling like I don't have time, not really executing on things like I was supposed to. So within those first 60 days, I was like, damn, did I kind of make a mistake? But also, good and bad thing, my pride kind of got in the way, and I was like, nah, this not me. And I kind of really just stuck with it until I started seeing the fruits of my labor. So it was definitely hard, man. Like, damn, I just spent all this money. I ain't made no money. Is this really it? Is entrepreneurship really for me? Thank God I stayed at my job, because I can't imagine spending that much money, not having a job, and not being able to even afford your payment or whatever the case may be, right? And that's why you never leave your bread and butter. Never leave your bread and butter until it makes sense, right? And then from there, just like, damn. But I stayed consistent, man. That's just the football in me, just because I'm so used to stuff not going your way and just putting your head down and actually working.
Man, I want to take you down a trip on memory lane. If you can recall, like up to like day 45, like now you're at day 45 of not making any money. Like, can you recall like that day, what you specifically did, or like what conversations you were having with your mentor, and then like how long it took to kind of like pivot from there?
So what he did was give me a reality check of like, basically like, yeah, bro, let's get on the call. All right, what are you doing? Okay, cool. This is what my team is doing day to day, which was quadruple what I was doing. So if I'm saying I'm messaging, I'm DMing, I'm connecting with 3 people throughout the week, they're doing 3 people an hour. You know what I'm saying? Different things like that. So I realized that I wasn't putting enough effort towards what I really wanted. I thought I was working because that's what I thought at the time, but I didn't really know what real work looked like until I got a mentor, until they showed me accountability, until they showed me what real work looks like, right? And you start to see in business, it's a volumes game. It's an experience game, right? You're afraid to mess up with one person, but you don't understand that even if you're not able to close or do business with that one person, you get experience, you get confidence to talk to the next person. So it's a volumes game. So I saw that I wasn't outputting enough to be able to get business in when it comes to marketing and different things like that. And when he showed me that, it completely changed my mind. Like, okay, instead of talking to 3 people thinking I did something, I need to talk to 13 people. I need to really actively do this. How am I maximizing my time, right? And that's when I kind of got on being on a calendar, and that changed my life forever. So up to this point, I never really cared to have a calendar. I wasn't really structured as far as that, right? I went from playing football, them having the structure for me, to a 9 to 5 where you just show up to work, right? But once I got on the calendar and I prioritized my development, I seen so much increase in amount of productivity, bro. Like actually mapping things out. Like during my lunch break, I'm going to go connect with this realtor. You know what I'm saying? During, you know what I'm saying, this break, I'm going to go cold call. During this break, I can take appointments. I can take sales calls. So I'm going to do it during this time. And once I had that structure inside of my job, like just in life in general, with understanding, like I'm not outputting enough, I'm not putting enough effort to see this thing grow at a rapid pace, boom, it all clicked.
Yeah, it's all the law of averages, like you said, volumes and experiences, and like that all averages out to the law, like the law of averages. Yeah. And everything has a law of average. Like even when it comes to like the ad spend, like you know that okay, it costs X amount of dollars per lead, yeah. Right? And then how many leads does it take to convert to an actual client, right? Yep. So then you know how much you got to spend in ads. So where you to your point, you was like, okay, how many DMs do I have to send to convert to a client, or convert to a customer? So it's all about averages. We learned law of averages. This goes back to my time with Ryan, right? Like when we was like selling the cable and the internet and stuff like that. It was like how many people you have to talk to in order to get that to that sale. Yep. And sometimes like. When I first started, it was like, man, I'm not getting anybody to say yes. And then the homie who trained me was like, well, Q, you only talk to like 5 people. Like I already done pitched 20 people. And so like now you learn a lot about KPIs. That's one thing that job taught me was how to track KPIs and what metrics matter. And a metric that always going to matter is how many pitches did you make? Yeah. And like a pitch can be in whatever form, a video call, phone call, presentation, whatever. Email. DMs, right? But how many pitches did you make? And then like, then you can take that to okay, I made 20 pitches and I got my first yes. Now I know it's going to take me about 20 pitches to get a yes. And then now you get to the nitty gritty of figuring out like, okay, how do we make that yes worth it? How much is this yes worth? To where, okay, this yes ain't really worth 20 pitches. So now maybe my ticket need to go up, or I need to improve my script or something to make that yes worth it, or make the less pitches to get to that yes, whatever the case is.
And then to add to that, and one thing that I teach my team as well is like, what did that yes look like? Yeah. Who is that avatar? Where do they hang at? What kind of things do they like? What did you say on the phone? How did you communicate with them? Was it more of a soft tone? Was it passive? Was it more of aggressive? Was it straight up, neutral? You know what I'm saying? What was their goal? You know what I'm saying? Where do they eat, sleep? All these different things, all these different habits have more of your yeses. So now we need to focus on that to really get more yeses. Does that make sense? And that's what I teach as well. But it takes time. You see how like you explained it from time and volume? And I think people in entrepreneurship really don't understand. Like it's not you start a business day one and you get a client. It's going through trials and tribulation, developing that experience and really getting outside yourself. Like I really humbled myself. When my mentor told me that, it humbled me because I thought I was doing something the whole time. I was barely scratching the surface when I thought I was really doing work. You know what I'm saying? But it took him exposing me to the right information and letting me know, hey, you're doing this. My top sales rep is doing this. You know what I'm saying? You should be doing more of this if you want to see more of the outcome. And I realized that it wasn't the information. It wasn't, my circumstances. It was me. And I think that's where the mindset shift came from. Like, not looking at your situation as a disadvantage or why you can't do something, looking at yourself like, what can you improve to do better at something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a big part. Because as an entrepreneur, when you first leave, it's kind of like easy. You thinking like, oh yeah, like I got my freedom back. But like you really don't, I don't think people talk about that. You really don't get the freedom of an entrepreneur until like Just like how they say you shouldn't collect profits until like 2 years in business, 3 years in business and stuff like that. Like that's when you really not even collecting freedom as a profit, right?
Yep.
Like you're not collecting that profit of freedom for another 2 years, 3 years either, because you got to work in the business and on the business.
100%.
And a lot of people, once they leave that job, they thinking, okay, now that means I could wake up at 10 a.m. and get started on the business. Or I could wake up at 10 a.m., eat breakfast, BS a little bit, go to the gym, and then don't start working on the business till 1 p.m. Like, what you just wasted so much time that could have been working on the business, where you literally came from an environment that gave you the structure of a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Just because you are an entrepreneur don't mean you should throw away that skill. You got that discipline. Don't just throw it away because now you're an entrepreneur. And then if anything, you should embrace it more. If anything, you should be even more motivated. Like, hey, instead of a 9 to 5, I'm going to work 8 to 7, or I'm going to work 8 to 6, or whatever it is. Like, work a little bit later, extend your hours of operation. And that's one thing you kind of made me think about when saying, like, you put yourself on the calendar a lot more, like scheduling your time, because you took that discipline of like, oh, I had this job, like I need to stick to a schedule. A schedule is super important. What was your schedule like? When was your like peak hours? Like, I know like you had that 9 to 5. So let's say after you left the 9 to 5, what did your schedule start to look like?
So honestly, I will always wake up earlier because I had a girl. So I would always try to spend time. You know what I'm saying? So what I would do is if I knew I could only spend like 3 hours working on the business or 4 hours at home, before I got to spend time with my girl, right? I would just wake up earlier. So if I didn't have to be to work till 7 or 8, I would wake up at 5, you know what I'm saying, to give me 2 hours or an hour or so of actually being able to work, right?
Whether it's before studying, she get up and stuff like that.
You know what I'm saying? Whether it's just studying calls, looking at recordings, replays, different things like that, or actually executing. So I actually started off in credit repair a little bit. So one thing I was doing in the morning with that was actually like mailing out dispute letters. I'll literally be in my office at home and I'll just be like wrapping up letters, and then I would actually drive to the post office, drop those letters off, and then go to work. And then during work, when it comes to my lunch break, I had a very flexible job. I would go out and network with realtors, CPAs, different people like that in the environment, because we had a work truck during work, so you could just go do your thing, right? So I would do that. And after work, man, it was crazy. Atlanta traffic's crazy. In the car, I'm spending like an hour in traffic almost. Instead of listening to music, I was listening to replays from my coaches. I was listening to coaching calls, and it'll be the same ones over and over and over again. And what I realized is like, listening to something takes more than once to really digest what they're saying. And me like listening to it multiple times, I'm starting to actually mimic and develop the thought process that he's talking about when we're doing our one-on-ones, when we're doing our trainings, to now implement that when I get time to. When I get to work, it's literally like throwing my work laptop, you know what I'm saying, just to the back, bringing out my laptop and actually just working on the business, understanding marketing, understanding how to acquire a lead, understanding what it takes to close a lead, understanding the product when it comes to credit repair funding, and how to be able to get more people in the pipeline and developing systems, you know what I'm saying, taking sales calls, different things like that. So it was tough in the beginning, man. I'm not going to lie. A lot of people don't really talk about the work, but I feel like I really wear my ass off, man. Like it was probably outside of school, studying engineering, playing football, that was one of the toughest moments, because like I said, during that time, I was hyper focused on me and nothing else. But one thing that I tell a lot of people as well, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And the people that don't understand now, they will understand later once the results come. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Like, you can't help somebody until you help yourself. I love my family. I love all my friends. And I'm one of those people that really help them, right? But I understood at an early age, I can't really help you until I help myself. If I'm down bad, if I'm broke, if I got 2 pennies and I give you 1 penny, that ain't really helping you, and it's just putting me in a worse situation. So in order for me to give back, to really add value to you as well, I need to get myself together. And I feel like a lot of people overlook that. Personal development and putting themselves first. You got to prioritize yourself, because at the end of the day, if we don't reach our goals, if we don't, achieve what we want in life, we can't blame anybody but ourselves. Just being realistic. Like, we all grown. We get to a point where we can't use our environment as an excuse. We can't use if we grew up without a father, because I grew up without my father, right? I can't use that as an excuse as a grown man, because one day I'm going to be a father. And I can't tell my son that, hey, I didn't have a dad, so I don't know how to be a dad, so you're just going to be a shitty person too. You know what I mean? So at some point, we got to develop those skills throughout life to really be the best version of us and stop making excuses and just put the work in.
Yeah. I have the 2 pennies situation. I mean, I have it's a hot take, and I don't know how people are going to take it. But I feel like I got to get it out of my chest because I've been thinking about this for a minute, and it's kind of like the effect of like how the black church has affected the black community sometimes in ways that I disagree with. Somebody, Marcus Rozier, he had actually brought this up about like the tithe of your time, right? Like it's other ways that, God encourages us to tithe, and it's not just tithing necessarily directly to the church. And I feel like some churches more than others, right, put a huge emphasis on like tithing. You got to give to the church. You got to give. And it's like going back to that, like if I'm middle class, barely affording like my utilities and stuff like that, and I got $20 in cash on me, it don't really like do that $20 or that $10. Let's say I give you half of it. Do that $10 really help the church more than it did if I didn't give that $10? And then now I'm only left with $10 to probably like feed myself lunch, or if I got kids, like what am I going to do with that $10? Like it don't really help. Where if I just take that same $20 that I think about tithing every week, take that. That's a $80. Let's say it's $25. That's $100. Put that into myself and invest in some type of software or something that's going to put me in a better situation. Stocks, some type of financial structure. Like that $20 that I could have held on to instead of giving it now, maybe 5 years from now, who knows? I can get $20,000.
Yep.
Because I've tithed to myself, which is also respecting God because I'm a man of God, right? So I'm tithing to myself. I'm investing into myself, investing to my mental well-being, my physical well-being, my financial well-being. So then I can make an even bigger impact than, like you said, giving you 1 penny when I only got 2 pennies. Yeah. That's not really helpful. And it's not just church that, that does this. Even when we think about playing the lottery. Like the average American pays about $460 a year in lottery tickets. I didn't know that. And peep this. In 2022, I believe is when I read this stat, 45% of Americans had a savings of less than $500.
What? I didn't even know it was that low.
So you think about that, like, okay, 45% got a savings of less than $500. But the national average is $460 annually on lottery tickets. You know what I'm saying?
I think, but also it comes back to education and podcasts and different things like this is showing people that it's possible, right? Because like I said, we're trained to just be workers, and a lot of people don't know what to do or how to go about business because it's not taught. Like you talked about in school, like you went to school for business, and most of them weren't even real business owners, but they can sit there and teach you about something they never did. So I think like the real is usually not pushed along. And another thing I want to talk about as well, man, is just like family traumas, man. It's a real thing, man, and it can make or break you as well if you're not strong mentally or you're not in an environment that really help you to become the best version of you, man. Just talking about that, being on the other side too, now having some success, having money, it almost seems like in the black community, when you're the one that has success, when you're the one that makes the right decisions, it's like a blessing and a curse. What I mean by that is like you almost now, because you made the right decisions, they don't want to support you as much. You know what I mean? But the person, the cousin, the uncle, the sister, the brother that probably made the worst decisions, they get the most support. They get the most, attention from family as well. So I feel like that's one thing that got to change in the black community as well. Just because somebody makes it out and makes the right decision, yeah, they may be good financially, but they still need your support. They still need your love too. You know what I'm saying? I feel like 100%. In the black community, that one thing that kind of gets overlooked, man. You make it, and it's like, oh yeah, they good, but nah, I still got emotions too. You know what I'm saying?
The mental, like, like you said, like it ain't easy. You said that was the hardest year you ever had worked. Yeah. Like all that work, like I'm sure you was going through some type of like struggle mentally. Yeah. Like so, just to get a phone call from somebody like, I'm super proud of you. I see you working. Like that right there is some support. Yeah. Like that right there is super helpful. And you're right. Like people do look at like, oh yeah, I see him posting his little business and he shared this success and like Yeah, I made a couple $1,000s, but I'm not. No, that don't mean I made it, right?
Yeah.
I still need a little bit of support. I still need you to kind of like share my business to that family member or that friend that you think could benefit from my services. Ask me about it so you can understand it a little bit more. So that if you do identify people, you could give me a nice little referral. Sometimes that's the best form of support too.
100%.
Give me a call, check on me, and everything like that. People just think because like you posting like your business that means you're successful. like, no, I'm posting my business so I can get sales.
Yeah.
I need to make it happen. So man, that's interesting. And by no means was I throwing a shot at the church at all. So I don't want nobody to come at me. I'm just there are traumas that we just gotta call out, and like you do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, I feel like we do have to do some things a little bit differently, especially when it comes to like protecting thy purse. As the man, I don't know if you ever read the book, The Richest Man of Babylon.
Never read that one, but
you should definitely check it out, man. It's a good book. It's an old book. It's set in Babylon, so you could tell it's old. There's a lot of thy and thou in there, but the principles of it, like protecting your coin and like investing and like compound effect of like loaning out your money, like especially as a credit guy. I think you rock with it. The way he was talking about how he was like becoming his own like bank and stuff like that. But going back to that period of you getting up early, because you mentioned having a girl. Were you living with her at the time, or were you living alone? Like,
yeah, so I was living with her.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's another thing that people don't talk about with entrepreneurship. Sometimes, like, and even going back to mentorship, this is like related to all of this, because when you get an advice on how you need to move, sometimes people tell you how they moved, but that's how they moved. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't necessarily move how you move because I got a wife and I got a son, and like that, the schedules don't align. Where you may not even be able to move the same way I'm moving because of those same differences, and you may not be able to move how they move because they don't have no family at all. Like they literally, because you got people who was like, oh, I was an orphan and I kind of made it out. Like how you had to move versus how I got to move is two totally different, because you ain't have no family checking for you. You ain't have no family relying on. It was literally just you. Mm-hmm. And so you could do certain things. So I think that's another thing that people don't talk about. But like for you, what was the biggest challenge outside of waking up earlier than you had to, right? What was the biggest challenge of like trying to grow a business and maintaining relationships? I don't know if your girl like was in the business with you, but if she wasn't, I'm assuming like she's not interested in the same things you interested in, and like you still got to do work, you still got to do all these things. Mm-hmm. What were some challenges that you faced with like still maintaining a relationship and trying to grow the business?
Focus, man. It was hard to focus. Like I feel like it messed with the relationship in general, because when I should be focusing on our time, in the back of my head, I'm worried about like business. Did I do this?
It's
did
tough.
I do that?
Yeah, it's tough.
Damn, did I send that email out? Or just even work? I'm still working a job. So it's like at my job, I'm focused on my business. So now my job productivity is probably slowing down a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Probably working a little bit later because of that.
Exactly. And then when I'm on business, I'm worried about business, but it's a different type of business because you're learning and doing. That's usually the slowest type of production because you're trying to figure things out while doing it. And then when I actually get time to spending time with my girl, it's like I'm looking back at the day like, damn, did I miss something today? Because there's so many different things going on. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it communication was definitely hard. And one thing I had to realize was just because I live with my girl doesn't mean I'm spending time with her. Yeah. And I feel like as a male, sometimes we don't really. A lot of us, most males don't really live off of emotions. So we look at like, all right, it should be all right. I live with her. I see this girl every single day. Like, what more to it? But it's like you home, but you're not home. You know what I mean? Because your time is into something else. Mm-hmm. So just being able to take a step back and just communication and just really structure my day to say, you know what? I'm going to turn my phone off. Yeah. And then I'm going to just focus on us and building us. And for a long time, she stuck with me, but she didn't really understand the vision until now when things start paying off. And now she actually works in the business. So I took her from out of working a 9 to 5, and she actually works in the business as well. To where like she was like, she now knows like, damn, I see what you was dealing with. Like I can't imagine doing this working a 9 to 5. Like she can't imagine doing the job that we do and then having a child. So she now understands what I go through. And then it kind of paints the picture. If you have a really good spouse and you really say this is the girl I'm going to be with. Let them into the business. It don't have to be fully into the business. You know what I'm saying? Just depending on how your spouse is, but let them see how the business is ran. Let them know what you go through day to day, because it makes them understand more what you're going through on a day to day, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
no, that makes a lot of sense.
And sometimes experience is better. Experience is a better key understander than communication. So I could tell you what I'm doing, but if you never been in it, you don't know what it's like. But if I say, nah, you know what? You're going to work with me today. And you're going to see all the texts, all the emails, all the calls, everything I have to do in a day. And now that helps people to understand what this person usually go through on a day-to-day basis. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That's actually a really good point. That's actually very valuable too, because sometimes like your spouse may not want to they may not be interested in like being in the business to a certain extent, but like you showing them, like taking a moment, you know, to show them is a good way to help them see it. And like going back to what you said about like guys being less emotional, is like, I wouldn't even say that we're like, well, we do tend to be less emotional, right? But it's more so like just lower maintenance too. When it comes to like a lot of like, me personally, like when we talk about love languages and stuff like that, my main one is like quality time. And quality time as a guy looks different than quality time as a woman. So like for me, like I could be working on my, like I would be like, this would be like the perfect ideal, like wind down time from a long day of work, is like working on my business, sitting on the couch, and then like my wife is like right next to me, and then like close enough to where I can kind of still like rub on her leg while like working on the business. And like that's like no TV on, just locked in with some like personal touch in there. That's like 1000% cool with me. But I know for her, like if she plans like to spend time with me, it's like, nah, close your laptop. Even like the phone can't even be in sight. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's definitely challenging. That's why I wanted to kind of bring up and ask you like, what were some of the challenges you had? Because, you know, one thing I love to see is that we're, despite those red pill, blue pill podcasts that go out there that kind of like pit male, you know, women and men against each other. In my circle, at least, I see a lot more like married couples, long lasting relationships, people doing things together. And so this is a real challenge that people are going to start facing. Like, hey, we're in this relationship, we're married and stuff like that. I'm trying to build a business. You might be trying to build a separate business. What does that now look like of us trying to build this business, or me trying to build a business and still having to, you know, uphold my promises that I kept to you and stuff like that. It's tough. It's challenging. It's not easy at all. But how do you feel now that she is in the business? That's pretty dope. How is it now for you working closely with, are y'all married?
No, we're not married yet.
So how is it now like working closely with your significant other?
I'm gonna give y'all the real. It's a blessing. It's a blessing and a curse. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not a big proponent on hiring family outside of my spouse, just because like depending on family personalities that can go sour, and that's a weird conversation to fire family, even though sometimes it gotta happen, right? But working with my girl, man, it's an amazing thing, because it's like I'm seeing me in her. You know what I mean? Like I'm seeing the growth. I'm teaching her. You know what I'm saying? And my girl's a very like, she's not prideful, but she's like kind of prideful, right? But like I can just see. Nah, she's not a Taurus.
Like a Taurus.
You know what I'm saying? But it's a great thing. But I just gotta like tone down on being an a-hole. Like I'm like in the work environment, I can be an a-hole.
Okay.
As far as like how you talk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not so much like I'm finna bash people, but if we in business, and I think it's just the football in me, if you messing up, I'm gonna say, yo, bro, you messing up. Like we gotta pick this stuff up. And sometimes with your spouse, you can't really fully talk like that in that way. So that's where like the 9 to 5 comes in, is like, before I say something, how should I really alleviate this so it doesn't get taken in this way? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Talking to females, sometimes you gotta take a different approach in communication. But
especially when they're your significant other.
Exactly, right? Because it's just weird, because like we got other employees as well, so it's not like it's just me and my girl. So it's like trying to keep that professionalism, but also it's like that's my girl. But overall, man, it's been good, just because like she's been a sponge. Most people are not a sponge. She's actually helped me to grow the business. She understands the business. So overall, it's been good, but it's just weird, just because, like I said, when those conversations happen, or if we on bad terms, it's like I tell her straight up, look, this is different. It's a difference between business and personal. If we went on bad terms last night or something,
we still gotta work.
Yeah, we still gotta work. We still gotta work. We still got business to do. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't really happen. But it's a good thing, man. I feel like when you find the right person that actually understands and wants to build, and they don't want to necessarily lead. So working with my girl allows me to lead 24/7. You know what I mean? So like, there's nothing wrong with your spouse going to a job and doing different things. But if you're able to bring your spouse into the business and they understand the business, you guys align goals and they see like, this is our bread and butter. And I feel like that helped me. Like, when you want a new purse, well, this is how your new purse is get made, by bringing more revenue to the business. You know what I mean? Different things like that. And when you align both, it's a powerful, powerful thing. And we grow in the business. Because my girl never knew anything about entrepreneurship. She didn't care. But now that she's in it with me, she becomes passionate, and it helps us connect on a deeper level as well. Because now I'm with you 24/7 throughout the day. You see my struggles, I see your struggles. We're helping each other. We're talking about the business after work. We're now, spending time with each other on a more personal level. So it can be a very, very good thing, man, when you find the right spouse and the right person that actually adds value to it. But I don't feel everybody should work with their spouse. But if you guys have a good a good personality mixture, and that spouse has very good skills that can add to your business, it'll definitely be a good thing to bring in.
Yeah. I mean, definitely not everybody should work with their spouse, but I think even like if you do have like some clashes and like personality and stuff like that, it's still worth it because like that's like who else, like that's like, because you said not doing business with like family, like that's more than family, because your spouse already like a business partner anyway, because like y'all both, even if y'all both got jobs, y'all both bringing in finances to the household. Yeah. So like y'all both are like partners in the family business, because we want to be real. The household is a business. Yeah. Right. And it should and could be ran like a business, from like how we manage it, operations, like schedules and stuff like that. It's a business, to say the least. It's a little bit less of an emotional way to put it, right? Because, they wouldn't necessarily put it that way, but it's a business. And I feel like spouses should work together, because like y'all with each other all the time. You spend the most time about it. And then there's a great way to make the one person feel less guilty about thinking about the business, because y'all in business together. Yeah. So like y'all could talk about business, and then you have their times where you're not talking about business, but it's still like, I think it's a blessing, like more of a blessing than a curse. As we transition to like the mindset shift, we kind of touched on mindset shifts a lot, throughout this journey that you put us on, Stedman. But like for you had mentioned earlier about like the freedom, and the freedom of entrepreneurship coming with a price. Elaborate on that a little bit more. Like, what price did you have to pay, and like what price usually comes with the freedom that people want? When we say like, I want the freedom of an entrepreneur, like what does that price tag look like?
Stress, late nights, adversity, trauma. It's a lot, man. Like, before you start to see the freedom, you go through all this other stages before that. And that's why I think that people don't understand. It's not like you start a business and you get your time back. It's so many things you have to do. You have to replace yourself before you even get close to getting your time back. And through those phases, you know what I'm saying? You experience so much from loved ones, from the business, from people you come in contact with, while learning, while still understanding yourself. Like, I came from football, where I was put into a system, to now working. I'm just not really understanding myself as a person, because I was always identifying myself with football, right? So that mindset shift, I just feel like it's just like being able to look at the bigger goal. One thing that I think people don't do enough of is think bigger. Yeah. Everybody wants to build a side hustle. Everybody wants to say, okay, I want to make my first 5K. And 100%, you should tear yourself out like that. But think bigger. Why not make your first 5 million? Right? The same work you put in to make 5K, you can put that work in to make 5 million. You know what I'm saying? So just thinking bigger and not allowing your mindset to limit you because you've never seen somebody next to you do it. That is not possible. You know what I mean? And then going to freedom, it's just replacing yourself within the business. The biggest way to get your freedom back is by scaling your business, which goes back to thinking bigger. Instead of you working all day, every day to make 10K a month, why not hire somebody else, right? That can take over a duty or role of yours. Now you get a part of your time back, and then that person brings back more revenue to the business. When people look at hiring, they look at, oh, this person too expensive, but hiring that top tier talent can bring more money to your business. You know what I mean? And it takes the weight off your shoulders. So just switching and thinking of what if it does work out instead of what if it doesn't work out. I feel like in entrepreneurship, especially in the beginning, a lot of people are scared. They're terrified they made the wrong decision. So they work off of fear instead of logic and being optimistic in what's going on. You know what I mean? But just switching the way you look at things. And then the biggest thing, man, I want to talk about, which would be like a gem that most people know, but they don't really know, they don't understand, is focus, man. Focus was the only way I was able to get myself out of my 9 to 5, because the calendar, the structure, I was able to focus on actually building myself. Most people wake up, like you said, as entrepreneurs, they don't even know what they're doing for today. They looking on the gram like, okay, I'm gonna just post this and I'm gonna wait for some business to come in. When not, in business, you gotta be passive aggressive and going out and getting business. Yeah. Business just don't knock on your door, especially starting out. You got to go get it. You know what I'm saying? You got to be cold calling, running ads, marketing, whatever your client acquisition is. You need to be hyper focused on getting that down pat. And then once you understand that aspect, moving to sales, how you convert these interested people, these leads, into a client. You know what I'm saying? What's your sales process? What's your sales conversion? And then being able to fulfill. And that's why I think people don't understand, is building that out to then be able to build a system. That's how you build a real system, and then being able to replicate it within other people, and that's how you grow the business.
1,000%, 1,000%. And then like touching on the, like when you hired your first employee, like what was the strategy used to? I'm sure it was a scary moment. Like, this is the first employee I'm about to hire. Like, am I going to be able to pay them for like long term? Like, what was the strategy you used? Did you purposely, or did you intentionally, I should say, go after like a credit card that would like be their salary? Like, what was your strategy for hiring that employee?
So my first actual employee was actually at my job. It was a virtual assistant. So it wasn't even somebody that worked here in the United States. It was an American. It was a virtual assistant that I paid $500 a month. So it wasn't like a crazy amount. You know what I'm saying? It was more so me understanding how to have an employee, how to keep an employee. You know what I'm saying? So that phase is a little bit different because it wasn't as big of an aspect. But when I started hiring American employees, which I have now, my strategy was just trying to find top talent. And I learned from my mentor early on. That's why mentorship is so important, because it changes your mind and it builds you up confidence and gives you resources to find and understand top talent and building a company. So hiring my first employee, my real American employee, was kind of scary, man. Just not knowing what to really look for and not knowing what's a good employee, what's a bad employee. I knew what I can do, but on the interview, everybody's pitching themselves to you and showing the good sides of you. So it takes you filtering out and finding who is actually a quality person for you. And then once you find that, like you said, just leveraging credit cards, being able to manufacture spend and stuff like that to be able to pay them. But after the first, I would say 60 days, that person starts to generate revenue and kind of pay for themselves. And that's why I think people don't understand. It's like you hiring the right person will directly bring in more money for your business. And it frees up your time to focus on more important things. You know
so
what I mean?
You feel like it's almost an instant ROI on it, like to where like was the backup plan, because I'm just putting myself in your shoes, like as the funding guy right now. I'm thinking like, in my mind, this is how I thought the process would go. Like, okay, like this employee, I'm gonna negotiate their salary, like were they on salary or like the part-time?
Hourly and then commission.
Okay, hourly and commission. So like even like hourly, if I'm treating it like a salary, I'm thinking like, okay, on average they'll probably make like 45,000. If they were with me for a full year, they'll make 45,000. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I gotta secure 45,000 as far as funding, so that way I can like know for a fact that they got to pay, or at least 3 months, like a trial period if I'm going with them, that they got to pay, and then we'll see what happens. But like you telling me it's like a little bit different than that.
So you shouldn't hire employees until you develop a proof of concept, right? And then your business should justify you hiring an employee. When you're drowning, when you're like, I'm getting too many leads, it's too much going on, I can't really handle, that's when you have a bottleneck in your business and you need to hire an employee to be able to scale and grow the business. So now you just shift those leads over to that employee, right? And give them a commission structure. Hey, off of how many deals you close, this is how much you're getting paid. So now they start to generate more business, because now you can still work in that role as far as like closing deals as well, but that employee can as well. So now you're able to take on more. You know what I'm saying? So don't look at it as an employee as like I got to make sure I secure their salary. Look at it as like they're bringing more money to the business, and now I'm able to take on more people to really, you know what I'm saying? Because they're going to, eventually that employee is going to justify themselves. Like they're going to be able to pay themselves with their work. So now all you got to focus on is continue getting leads in the door and being able to take on more leads. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So your first employee, your first, not your first employee, but your first American employee, or I guess high talent employee, wasn't necessarily somebody that was doing work. This is somebody that's bringing in revenue.
Yeah, it was a revenue driven role.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's all. So when we talk about strategy, that's probably a part of the strategy too. Like you want them to be high talent, but also revenue generating to make sure to ensure growth of the business.
100%.
Not necessarily like, because I know some people when they thinking about employees, they just thinking about somebody who can just do the work that they can't do no more. And sometimes that's not necessarily revenue generating, but it is helpful. Like for our aspect as a media company, like. We have a lot of clients, and it's not necessarily a lead management issue. It's a volume issue on like editing, right? And so, well, I guess that does generate like if you can edit more, then you can bring in more clients, right?
I think I got you. So that's a CEO issue, right?
Yeah,
that's a CEO issue. The reason you should be hiring and outsourcing is to buy more of your time back, not to chill, but to figure out how can you get more leads through the door.
right.
So when I hired an employee and they were able to take more sales calls, now I was able to handle more. You know what I'm saying? I was be able to figure out more marketing and also take sales calls. So instead of me doing the marketing and the sales, I now focus on the marketing to bring more sales there. And when that person's overflow, I can still take sales. So now you got 2 steads instead of 1. You know what I'm saying? And replicating. So when you outsource and hire somebody, it's not saying you got your time back to be at home, sleep, or like, work, you know what I'm saying, work later or wake up later. It's more so being able to prioritize more avenues of the business. And that's what people don't look at. Like as a CEO, how you grow your company is by working on the company, not in the company. And what keeps small businesses small is that they're working in the company and they're limited minded. They think that I can't afford to hire somebody else because I'm gonna take home less and I got bills. When in reality, you hire somebody to take on more and take weight off your shoulder. Now you can focus on more generating skills. You know what I'm saying? Bringing more revenue to the business. So as a CEO, understand where are the bottlenecks in your business, hire and outsource, or the things you hate doing. If you know you don't like editing, hire somebody to do that. But you need to focus on what you like doing and bringing more business in the door. If somebody's editing and doing the filming, then you need to figure out how the heck can I get more people on my podcast? You know what I'm saying? And so your role just shifts to an easier role where you don't have to stress as much and maybe it's not more as labor intensive,
Right.
but you don't just take yourself out of the business and say, hey, I'm done. You know what I mean?
Right. No, that's a great point. And so now as we shift a little bit, Stead, like I've always said that every business has a moment in time where they go through that valley of disappointment. You know, like that U curve that goes like this, like from the moment you start the business and then it like kind of like shifts down and then the boom, it skyrockets up. But like from the moment you start to the moment it start to shift back up, there's like this valley of disappointment. So for you and your business, like what was that valley of disappointment? What did that look like? How did you get yourself back up into that, I guess that upward trend?
I would say marketing. Ironically, entrepreneurship is just like business as far as like you get comfortable. So when you're making money, when you're used to making $50K a month, it becomes comfortable. At $50K a month, you can basically take care of most of your needs depending on what type of lifestyle you live in, right? You get comfortable doing that. But then when you want to grow, you're stagnant and you got to understand that the things you were doing to get to 50K are not the things that are going to take you to 100K. So it's getting back uncomfortable, understanding, spending more money to be able to get over that hump. And that was kind of a marketing bug with us, right? We were just running ads heavily and depending on ads and thinking, okay, we increase the ad spend, we're ironically going to make more money, but it doesn't always work like that. So then we started implementing more affiliates, active outreach, getting people to send leads to us. You know what I'm saying? Those are technically almost free leads. You know what I'm saying? So having other avenues to bring traffic in really to help build the business up. So that was one thing that I saw, like just being comfortable and instead of like rising, just flatlining. And it's like trying to figure out what is the problem, what is the issue, and it all leads back to marketing. You know what I'm saying? If our sales conversion is around 35%, that's not bad. You've been in sales, you know what I'm saying? Well, okay, how can we get more qualified leads through the door to be able to close more deals, fund more clients, and different things like that?
Yeah, 30% conversion is a hell of a conversion.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a great conversion. Like,
yeah, but people that are not in sales and don't understand entrepreneurship, they think that you got to sell 80, percent, and that's unrealistic for most people. You know what I'm saying? So just having a decent conversion rate from lead to client and different things like that.
Yeah. That's like going back to 30%. I don't know, people might think that's low, but that's like every 3 people that you pitch, like you almost getting like 1 for every 3 that you pitching. Like that's pretty good. Yeah, okay. So because we talk about law of averages, we talking about like 20 and stuff like that at the beginning.
And that's that's the key metrics that people talk about. So like a lot of people will teach you how to hustle. But one thing I'm gonna tell young entrepreneurs out there, just always think big. Like don't think about, like I talked about, how to make your first 5,000. Think about how can you make your first 5 million. Structure your business from day one as an actual business. You know what I'm saying? Don't just be side hustling, because you get in that mindset, you stick in that mindset, and you look 10 years and you've been making money, but you've been working like a slave too, because you haven't built the proper systems out. You haven't hired the proper people. You haven't put yourself in a position to remove yourself from the business.
Right. Yeah. And it's like one thing that I learned from science in school was like, the amount of energy it takes to build up momentum is going to be the same. So like when you talking about like, oh yeah, don't structure your business like a business from day one, because the amount of energy and effort it's going to take for you to start that business versus starting a side hustle is exactly the same. Yeah. So you might as well do it the way that's going to help you grow, like maximize your growth. Same thing with the revenue. Like the amount of energy, if you starting from zero, the amount of energy it takes to get the momentum to get to 10K months versus getting the 100K months is really the same. Yeah. I heard Myron Golden say this too, like say the same thing. It's the same amount of energy, same amount of effort. Like if you're really doing it, it's the same amount of effort. It's just one person put the goal at 10K, the other person put the goal at 100K.
Yeah.
So man, Stedman, it's been a great pleasure having you on here talking about business. I appreciate, you know, the you sharing your business acumen with us, like your experiences, some like your challenges, your downfalls, but then the celebrations at the end of it all, like just wrapping the story all together. Before we wrap things up, tell listeners more about where they can find you, but anything like special you have coming up, like some things you're really excited about in business coming up as well.
100%. So you guys can find me on Instagram at Stead.Waiters. That's my Instagram. I drop free game all the time. Also, if you're interested in getting funding for yourself or starting your own funding company, or if you currently have one, you're looking to scale it and build like an actual business from it, I host a free funding workshop every Sunday. So we'll definitely get to that. And then just for your group, man, I got to bless your group, bro. Everybody on here that comments engineer below this video, you're going to get a free credit union ebook about all the credit unions that we use in my funding business to be able to get our clients anywhere from 50 to 100K in funding, man. So
man, that's dope. That's a hell of a free gift right there. Hey, I'm gonna even add on to it, man. For anybody, like he said, who comment the word engineer on top of that free ebook, I'm going to even give y'all a free templated content calendar. So once he help you scale your business and get the funding, now you got a sequence of content you need to be putting out from blogs, videos, social media videos and posts, and a schedule on when you need to put it out so that you can get the leads and start getting them DMs popping.
Yes,
all right.
Sir.
Before we let you out of here, Stead, one more question. Like, what's one question that you wish someone asked you when you were first starting out?
One question that someone asked me when I was starting out.
Or you wish somebody asked me, like I wish somebody would have asked me this. It would have kind of put me to another level. Or something you wish somebody would have told you when you were first starting out.
Kind of what I've been pitching this whole time. It's like, what do you want out of this? Like, what do you really want out of this? What do you want the impact to be? How do you want to be remembered? You know what I'm saying? And just like, do you want to go big or go small? Because like we talked about, and it took me years to learn this. Like you said, the same amount of work it takes you to make 5K is the same amount of work it takes you to make 5 million, 500,000. You know what I'm saying? So just starting from the beginning and building up. Because if you don't have that foundation, even if you're making money, you still got to come back down. You're losing time to build that foundation and bring it back up. So, like, what is your goal? You know what I'm saying? What's your real goal and how big you want to take this thing?
1,000%, man. Impact over income, always. Because, like, the more impact you make, the more income, you get. And it's like you're not even thinking about the income, too. Sometimes, you shouldn't be chasing anything. You should be attracting things. And, like, when you focus on impact, what you attract is like 10 times more than what you could ever have the endurance to chase. So like that's how I like to think about it. It's just like what am I attracting? What impacts am I making? Sound like you doing the same thing instead. And it's like a credit to your success, man. So shout out to you, brother. And I appreciate you hopping on here, spending your Saturday morning. But bro, we here early. Like it's not even 10 yet. And like he's here. He suited and booted. Like, we here early, so appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday morning, brother, to talk to me, talk to our community here of millionaires. If you have any closing remarks, now's the time to share, brother.
Yeah. Believe in yourself because nobody else will. And don't worry about what people saying. You know what I'm saying? Let your results prove you otherwise. Let your results speak for you.
Hey,
say that.
We're going to drop the mic right there. I'm your guy, Kai Speaks. You just heard from Steman Waiters. I hope y'all found extreme amounts of value from this episode. If you did, make sure you share it to a family member, to a friend that you think will get gain from this. Make sure you like and comment the word engineer if you want those free gifts that me and Stead got for y'all. All right, we out. Peace.